Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Let's get started. We will be talking about Agile in the new year, how to move from managing projects to products, what organizations need to be doing in 2020. While people are still joining, we'll get started with a couple of housekeeping items. Just to set the stage here, this webinar is scheduled for 1 hour. 45 minutes of that is presentation, and 15 minutes of that will be reserved for questions and answers. So anytime you have any questions, feel free to drop them into either the chat box or the Q&A box, likely the Q&A box, but we will be monitoring both. If you'd like to drop them in there as we go along, and we will answer them at the end as time permits. All lines are on mute, in case you haven't noticed. There is a phone audio in your invite. If you're having any issues or can't hear too well, you can try logging out and logging back in. That solves most of it. And if you're still having issues, you can try the phone audio. Sometimes that helps as well. The webinar is being recorded. We get asked this a lot. So anything that you see today, don't worry about taking notes. The webinar is being recorded. We'll send the recording out to anybody that registered for the event. So if you have to drop early or anything like that, no worries. We will send the recording out and the slides as well. So you can have the presentation materials to refer back to or send to colleagues, whatever you feel needed. So with that, I am joined here today by Margo Visitacion from Forrester Research. Margo is the Vice President and Principal Analyst over at Forrester, covering a lot of the Agile and EA space. Margo has been in the industry quite some time with a lot of pioneering of the way of the Agile market, and she hears from a lot of organizations what they're doing. So she has a wealth of knowledge and experience in the market and knows quite a bit about what actually happens with organizations and how they can become more agile. So really excited to have Margo here with us today. And with that, I'll turn it over to Margo.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me today, and welcome everybody. Today we're going to talk about Agile in 2020. You know, we really think about how organizations are handling their digital transformation. You know, it's a buzzword we hear everywhere today, and how organizations are managing the way that they reach their customers, or changing the way that they reach their customers. Because customers today have, you know, they're so much more in tune with how they like to interact with companies. You know, now you're no longer, as a customer, limited to, you know, an in-person interaction or a phone interaction. Now customers want to have the same experience, a great experience, whether they are in person, on phone, online. Very often the first way that a company is going to interact with their customers is going to be through a through an online interaction. So what does that mean to companies? Companies now have to look at ways of continually delivering great experiences to their customers. And that means that they're now thinking about things more in a continuous fashion versus individual projects. So for us today, what we need to be thinking about is, how do we become more product oriented? First thing we have to do is understand what's the difference between project and product management. Then we have to understand, how do we make the transition from that? You can't just say, therefore, go forth and go do products. There's a way that you transition to becoming more product oriented. And you need to know that you're doing the right things at the right time. So how do you measure those things? We'll talk about that today. And then we'll wrap it up with some recommendations. In the research that we're doing around Agile, you know, we see Agile as not just a team exercise, but Agile as an organizational exercise, where you're moving from doing Agile to being Agile, really taking off in 2020. And why do we see that? It's all about the customers. And speaking of taking off, I'd like to share a little customer story of my own. I fly 2 different airlines. Primarily, I fly Delta Airlines, but on occasion, when I need to get someplace that Delta doesn't go, I have to fly American Airlines. And I live in North Carolina. North Carolina, you can have all 4 seasons in a day in North Carolina. So I travel quite a bit. And one day I was flying out and storms delayed the flight. As I was driving to the airport for my Delta flight, I got a notification that my flight was delayed with a question, did I want to reschedule my flight? I chose to reschedule my flight, all on my phone. By the time I got to the airport, I was checked in to a new flight, went into the Delta lounge, got additional updates about my flight, and then also had a customer service rep reach out to me via my phone to find out whether the transition was made smoothly. And it was. The next week, I had to fly out on American Airlines because I had to go to a location that Delta didn't go to. Again, it being North Carolina, the weather changed. Got to the airport, checked in, went to head toward the gate, only to see on a sign that my flight was delayed. There was no notification from American Airlines. I got an email 2 hours after I went to the desk and made a change to a different flight, asking me if I wanted to make a flight. 2 different airlines, 2 completely different customer experiences. What that told me is that Delta gets that the customer is at the center of the interaction. I can tell you that I haven't flown American Airlines since and will not fly American Airlines again. The customer is at the center of the interaction. Delta thought about the product that they are delivering to their customers. That's not just an airline flight. It's also a completely digital experience. So Delta gets it. How do we start thinking about moving from projects to product management? First thing I want you to know is you're not alone. 72% of firms are undergoing digital transformation, or they're investigating one. And I can tell you it's already underway. Only 34% of CEOs, however, report a successful transformation. People are really struggling because digital transformation requires us to work in a very different way. 19% of organizations say reorganizing IT is a critical or high priority for them in the coming year. Companies are getting that they need to be thinking about teams differently. They need to be thinking about how the flow of work goes through their organizations differently. What's really interesting is the 19% this year is actually a significant dip from 2 years ago when it was 38% of companies were recognizing that they needed to reorganize IT. What this is telling us is that that reorganization and this transformation from project to product is really heavily underway. And it's all about the customer hyper adoption, creating great customer experiences, doing it digitally, all forces changes in the way that we work. When we ask companies to rate their success in their digital transformation, we saw that most organizations had some wins and had some losses. What I think is most interesting here is, training employees and executives. There are some struggles with that. Most are in the middle of the road. They have wins, they have losses. Re-engineering business processes, accelerating transformations, and reorganization to increase agility. Companies are in the thick of this right now to help them deliver more effectively, and it impacts the way that they plan and deliver. Look at the selection around determining the appropriate amount of our budget to be spent, how you budget, when you budget, and the way that funds are being allocated all have to change when you move from project to product management. But why do we even want to think about moving to product management? Why? Because the product manager mindset thinks in a different way. And we'll go into some of the specifics in just a second. But the first thing you need to be thinking about is that product managers, that mindset brings agility and it supports course correction. Why? Because when you're continually focusing on your customers, you recognize that change is constant. And that's the opposite of project management desire and demand. You recognize that customers are going to get feedback, try and experiment things, and if they want to stay with your company, you have to continually feed them really good experiences. So Product managers, the ones that we've interviewed, they obsess over continuous improvement. They connect with their customers, their internal stakeholders, to consistently identify improvements and link them to strategy so that you do have a successful transformation. Product managers bring this perspective not just to their individual teams that are focusing on things like development or testing, but being more cross-functional in nature, bringing other sets of capabilities into the organizations. And companies that are doing it well recognize that product managers are the skill set that's needed to be able to deliver this consistent value to their customers. In fact, 45% of experts in Agile delivery deploy product managers versus only 21% of neophytes, those new to Agile transformation. So let's dive into what is the difference between a project manager and project management and product managers and product management. Project managers, it can be a business function or a technology function. It's all about focusing identifying the scope of what needs to be done and how to deliver it and organizing those sets of activities needed to deliver a specific project or service. It's output oriented. So in other words, you're organizing to implement a set of deliverables. Getting to the finish line is the key element for project management. It is change oriented. You need to manage those activities to deliver change. And if there is change in the project, you are delivering that. You do plan and control timelines, resources, and budgets. You have to communicate progress. But the key difference is that it is output oriented, not outcome oriented. Yes, you want to deliver a project that you delivered it on time, on budget, and it meets the customer's expectations at the time of delivery. The key element is that it's temporary. Once the project is completed, the project manager moves on to the next project. Product managers are different. They are a business function. They're focused on maximizing business value or outcomes from delivering products. It's very customer focused. They seek to deliver value through greater customer experience. That's why you're always collecting feedback and determining what you want to be delivering to your customers. They have to have the vision for the product, identifying a problem or identifying an opportunity and figuring out how to solve that to reach a level of success. Technology savvy and knowledgeable. It's not a developer, it's someone who has to understand how technology can deliver business value. And it's long lasting. It's over the course of a product life cycle. Once that set of digital capabilities are delivered, the product manager doesn't walk away. They're continually looking at how they can improve that product, deliver greater value, and find newer opportunities. They're also looking at maintaining that quality over time so that you're consistently delivering value. So why should you care about product management? What does it mean to your company? Product management and adopting that product management mindset gets you closer to your customers. It allows you to have direct impact, have a direct impact on the product delivery by getting direct feedback from your customers. It breaks down silos to work faster. You're going to get feedback as you're releasing to, you see apps on your phone today, finance apps, insurance apps, retail apps. You're consistently being asked for feedback. You get that feedback, and the product manager uses that to determine the future path of the products. It provides greater opportunities for collaboration because a project manager deals directly with their team and their key stakeholders. Product managers deal much more broadly: sales, marketing, legal, HR, all different types of folks within the organization, but also a broader set of customers outside of the organization. Product management, because you're looking at that end-to-end, what's the idea? How are we going to deliver it to the customers? What do the customers think about it? How are we going to market it to get more customers? And how do we sell this product? Gives you transparency into the total life cycle cost, not just the planning and delivery of the actual set of artifacts themselves. having that transparency increases the speed of delivery. So let's talk about product management practices today. Are they becoming more mainstream, if you will, in the planning and delivery processes? And the answer is that they are. 52% of organizations are using story-based requirements, meaning how does the customer interact with the product in order to build their products? And this isn't just for digital products, this is also for physical products. They're using things like customer journey maps and looking at how a customer discovers a product, interacts with it, tests it before they decide to buy it, and then uses that product going forward. 40% now have product owners from the business. This is all comes from our global Agile online Agile survey, and we're now seeing that, several years ago, it tended to be a partnership where there would be a product owner and name only from the business, but the heavy lifting was done on the technology side or the IT side of the house. We're seeing that shift to now 40% having product owners from the business. 38% are now practicing early and frequent feedback. That is, a newer and a little bit more of a mature practice that we're seeing. And, that's why the numbers there are a little bit lower, but it is gaining in traction from previous surveys. As for product management, it is now, well over a third, 38% are now practicing product management as their as the owner of their planning and delivery processes. So what are the goals of a product organization? In a product organization, in a project-based organization, executives set the vision and strategy, they identify priorities, and they build that from market knowledge. Application development and delivery designs the products, they manage innovation, they handle the data, they also identify what are the limitations of the technology and what they can deliver. In a project-based organization, these two elements are coming from different areas, okay? And they then get fed in as a series of projects that are coming from various departmental silos. You get a traffic jam in the center because the customer is not they're customer aware, they're not customer driven and customer focused, because there is not an element of product management that listens to the customer to identify what the opportunities are based upon market knowledge. A product organization places that product owner as the liaison and as the owner of the customer experience. They're continually listening to their customers, identifying what the sentiments are, their preferences, the concerns, how much revenue can we possibly derive from answering these demands of our customers, and using that to provide feedback and derive guidance from executives that then guide how products are then being delivered. So it moves from an annual static process to a continuous, ongoing communication, collaboration of planning and delivery. So project management is a series of stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Product management, think of it as a continuous cycle where you're looking at things over the longer term and over the life cycle. So now let's talk about how we're going to make that transition. First thing I want you to recognize is this is not completely new stuff. When you think about products that are customer facing, what you're doing is actually delivering a set of capabilities to a customer that are aligned with your business's capabilities to deliver that product or service. So you're enabling customers to consume a product or service that is core within your company's capabilities. Products are customer facing, okay? You're building a capability for a product, okay? A digital product that allows you to say, pay your bills online, social banking features, maybe a new deposit feature. That's a capability that you're extending to your customer. Programs are business facing. And you might be modernizing your account management systems, which are mapping to customer info databases, commercial info databases that are going to allow you to service your customers more effectively. Maybe you're going to modernize your transaction management system, deposits and ACH, okay? What these are capabilities across the board. And they all make up what is a value stream of business processes that allow you to complete an account transaction. So it's an end-to-end set of processes. It's not new. What's different is the frameworks of managing them are the same. What's new is how we think about it now in a continual basis versus a stop-start of a project. So this is not completely new stuff. Companies have been doing programs for a long time. Programs are business-facing. You're delivering business optimization. Products are customer-facing. You're delivering customer value. How you manage them is much more similar than what you realize. It's not new stuff. The first thing that you need to do in your transition is put your customer at the center of your strategy. You're no longer thinking about, oh, I need an application to help me, to help improve sales and marketing. You're now thinking that our customers are demanding a certain set of experiences. How do we solve that problem? You're moving from having a lot of information in a lot of different areas that frankly takes time for you to figure out how you're going to kick off and when you're going to kick off a project. So you have a lot of information, but it's not connected together. When your customer is at the center, you need to be more insight driven, using customer feedback, using revenue information, using sales, using customer support information to help you make decisions on what are the right things to deliver. It's no longer working on building the perfect set of requirements. By the time you did that, your competitors will have stolen your customers. You've got to get out there fast, you've got to be willing to experiment, and you need to be willing to pivot to help support your customers' needs. No longer departmental. When we think in terms of products and value streams, we're now connected and planning together to see how we can better serve our customers. And you need to be more focused. Moving to product-based planning from project-based planning means you're not looking to consume your budget, the use it or lose it mentality of planning. You're now looking at how do I solve burning business problems. You need to start looking for what are the business opportunities or what are the customer-driven or what problems are our customers having, and make sure that it's business critical and big enough to gain visibility within the organization. You start looking at what's the high value stuff that we need to solve. What are the problems we need to solve, not what project can I get done from my budget. And you need to have product managers within the business. You need to recognize that organizational structure is essential. Product teams are focused on the delivery of product value. Companies that are doing this right, that reorganization, is they are forming product teams. And those product teams stay together. If it's releasing to a business customer, an internal customer, you are identifying products around capabilities and you're forming teams around that. So you're using to allocate for output, not for utilization. Cross-functional team representation is a must. You have to make time for it. In other words, there are always going to be some resources that are going to be shared, but when your core team stays together, you need to focus on sequencing of work in order to be able to bring in the right people at the right time. Teams are measured as teams and they are accountable as teams. It's not individual performance. Companies get much greater output and much greater value when everyone on the team recognizes they're in it together. Feedback and transparency is mandatory. Insights provide guidance for progress. You can't do this without having a consistent feedback loop. Executives provide guidance and they need the data in order to make decisions whether to pivot or persevere. Measures must be balanced. You can't just measure efficiency on time, on budget. You also have to balance it with effectiveness, that did we deliver the right thing at the right time? And you can't do this manually. got to recognize that if you're going to transition from project-based to product-based, you're now building a much more of a connected enterprise, and you need to have the right tools in place to help you manage progress, prioritize, and manage the velocity of your teams. From a process perspective, organizations are recognizing that they have to move from annual-based project planning that's once a year, where every budget is allocated, and then you pull the trigger at the beginning of a calendar and fiscal year, and everybody's off to the races. What they recognize is that through product planning, they can have this become a continuous process that focuses on outcomes to benefit the customer. So they are continually seeing what they're getting for their money and recognizing that this is a much more risk-averse way of planning versus traditional project planning. So in Agile product planning, what does it look like? It, again, moves from annual to a rolling 12 to 18-month roadmap. The market's going to change dramatically unless you are in such a capital-intensive market, such as construction or capital construction, or you're building ships and planes, where those products have a 30-year lifespan. Typical business today, and especially digital business today, your market could change entirely within 12 to 18 months. So executives set strategic direction, identify strategic outcomes. Business leaders and technology leaders are developing a strategic roadmap, again, 12 to 18 months, that identify the business strategies and align them with strategic architecture. That's the top-down guidance that I talked about before that enable product teams to pick for value and prioritize the backlog of their portfolios and then determine how they're going to fund. They're now funding teams to deliver products versus funding a project that pushes people together. You identify the product and solution architecture, and you're identifying what are the digital customer-facing things that we need to enhance, what are the back-end capabilities that we need to enhance. So we're funding value streams over individual projects and allowing our Agile teams to deliver autonomously. Because they're doing it on a frequent cadence, you can measure the outcome and adjust the funding. And that then allows you to get frequent 2-week to 4-week feedback that allows the company at a higher level to adjust on a quarterly basis to measure value and adjust the roadmap. So when you're funding products instead of projects, you're funding teams versus consuming a budget. What that then does is allow you to identify innovation, set aside a budget for innovation. What are the bets that we're going to place? What's the new technology going to be? What are the goals that we want to achieve? And we'll place our bets there. They're short-term, time-boxed, experiment, fast feedback types of work. Those innovations that then get approved for products then are funded as a product itself. It's not a project and a bucket of maintenance to enhance a project once it's deployed. It's a living life cycle of minimum valuable product. Those are then measured for what value they deliver, and as you transfer more work from project work to product work, what we'll see is that our minimum viable product allocation grows as Agile adoption increases. The large bucket of maintenance that most organizations have, and the average today for a project-based organization is 76% of your funding of your budget goes to ongoing ops and maintenance, and only 26% goes to new projects. When you move to a more product-based world, you are seeing that MVP allocation go up and the ongoing ops and maintenance allocation goes down. You will always have ops and maintenance allocation because you're looking at your infrastructure or your cloud your cloud environment, and you're always going to have pay for that. And there will always be projects. You will always have a one-off need for projects from time to time. But that becomes a smaller set of allocation. At the end of the day, every organization is measured on delivered value and then needs to bring that value back as feedback for future strategic decisions. So what does the organization look like? As we said, product managers have a much broader set of responsibilities in how they interact with the organization. At the highest level, they own that vision. They determine the product roadmap. They are setting the direction for winning new customers and gaining additional revenue. At the mid-level, they're working with their teams to identify the customers, the market, how they're going to reach the customers, what are the best features and capabilities that they're going to be delivering to their customers. And then at the lowest level, they're actually managing and overseeing how Scrum teams or Kanban teams work together in order to achieve the desired outcome. They're prioritizing backlogs for optimum velocity and consistent delivery of value. When you're forming product teams, you need to recognize that there are different organizational needs. The core teams are dedicated and long-standing. They're supported by shared services that are dedicated when allocated. What that means is we're seeing companies putting together centers of excellence. So if you see at the top of the slide, we talk about customer experience, user experience, architecture, security. Those are not roles that can be embedded long-term in a team. But what they can do is when they are allocated to the team, they're 100% of the time for the time that they're needed. What that requires is greater support from the PMO to support coordination of shared services to help manage those dependencies. So you've got teams that are allocated together. They may be customer facing, they may be product or capability facing, but they are working together to deliver continuous value. Making that transition allows an organization to plan and deliver outcomes at scale. So when you put this together, that you have that top-down view of your planning, and what I do want to say is when we talk about going into continuous planning, annual planning, and accounting and annual budgets don't go away. That is accounting. Those are finance rules. You can't get away from that. But what you can move to is a more continuous allocation based upon actual capacity for teams. And that's what a product organization does by having their teams together. They're identifying when value is needed, and they can then prioritize the work that needs to be done and drive that allocation when they're delivering value. So you still see that top-down planning of strategic themes that are coming, that are housed in strategic portfolio management tools or project portfolio management tools. That's providing guidance for the teams so that they can align with their strategic roadmap. What we've seen is that customers in the field can consume change on about a quarterly basis. That's at the comfortable level of consumption of significant change for customers. That enables you then to identify in 3-month increments what your capacity is and what you're able to deliver. That allows you to manage budget, scope, and schedule much more effectively, because you still are going to have deadlines. Even in an agile environment, think about if you are a digital games provider, chunks, and that allows you to better manage capacity in your portfolio. So your budget and your people are being managed in your portfolio tools, so you know what you're consuming, and the actual work is being managed of sprints and Kanbans are being managed in either project management tools or value stream mapping management tools or various types of Kanban boards. That allows you to build this at scale. Connecting these tools together in a planning and delivery ecosystem, excuse me, got ahead of myself. Across the board. So it's a transition. There's how do you do this, and how do you make sure that you can do this consistently? It's through making measurable progress. You pick that burning from project to product management in iterations by identifying what constitutes a good product, and you form a team around that and identify how you're going to manage your resources. Next thing you have to think about is, to make it stick, you have to have measurable progress. Number one way of doing this is to foster continuous improvement. Organizations half of companies say that they succeed in projects less than 45% of the time. We've seen from PMI that $113 million is lost for every $1 billion of projects executed by wasting time, budget, and not managing scope. That's because in those environments, continuous improvement is not a priority. It's marching to the end, to the deliverable. In Agile worlds, in product worlds, you are fostering continuous improvement. At the end of every delivery cycle, whether you're doing a 2-week sprint, a 3-week sprint, a 2-month-long Scrum-Bon, you need to start looking at retrospectives as being a standard part of practice. You need to look at what you have to identify what you need to start to do. You need to identify what you need to stop doing, identify what you should keep on doing because it works, and then determine what you need more of and less of. All of this is, as a team, your team should be empowered to be able to identify what works for them while maintaining a sufficient level of communication for feedback and guidance. And progress measures must be cross-organizational. When you measure in silos, you have conflicting priorities and you have inconsistent performance. We're increasingly seeing organizations adopt measurement practices like objectives and key results, or OKRs, to help them build cross-organizational continuous improvement. Now, this is an example of an OKR, where an organization identifies a strategic objective, such as improving market presence through new products. And if I were to make this a real OKR, I would also include a goal measure in that objective. Then each organizational unit then has to have a set of objectives that they need to, or a set of key results that they need to identify that's going to help the company reach their objective. So sales has a set of key results that they need to achieve. Product management needs to have a key result that they need to achieve, and marketing has a key result that they need to achieve in order to help improve market presence. And key results then relate directly to their ability to achieve that objective. So in the case of sales, you're looking at expand sales in current markets by 25%. When you identify a goal, and then in a key result, identify perhaps a baseline and a new goal, you can then identify a clear and consistent KPI to help you measure progress. So expanding sales in current markets by 25%, they now know that their KPI that they're going to be tracking is the percentage of net new customers in existing markets. The best way to become insight-driven and measure your progress is to use tools that work for you. Agile, moving to a product-oriented environment And one of the tenets of Agile is to co-locate and bring people together. In today's business, that's not always possible. It's optimal, but it's not always possible. So you need to make use of tools when co-location isn't really a reality for your company. And this is where what I call an operational system of record or a planning and delivery ecosystem comes into play. So if you remember the previous slide where we had that the entire scale of delivering on an annual roadmap, this is what it looks like from a tools perspective. The tools that are on the market now, because they are configured and built on a really strong API architecture, enables companies to connect tools together in order to be able to work more effectively, leverage collaboration capabilities, and use data much more effectively. So linking together your planning tiers with your execution tiers and sitting it on top of a strong data layer and leveraging integration hubs or APIs enables you to connect these tools to be linked together, planning and delivery, so that you have consistent feedback loops. Using the right tools, having the right processes, and leveraging OKRs to help build a consistent and connected measurement framework allows you then to start drilling into best practices. And the best practices in this area are focusing on metrics that indicate on momentum, not just schedule and cost. And what I mean by momentum is you're also focusing on outcomes, that you're delivering capabilities and features and the direct to consume the schedule and the outcomes.
Oh, Margo, sorry, you just cut out for that last part. Can you just repeat that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, sorry, we're having some phone issue here. Okay,
Yeah,
what I sorry about that. So focusing on metrics that indicate momentum really means that you're looking not just at consuming schedule and cost, okay? You're actually looking at, I'm delivering this in the time frame that I committed to, but I'm using the feedback from quality metrics, from customer sat metrics that will then indicate that I'm moving in the right direction. You need to, again, leveraging an OKR framework, create shared purpose with business level measures. So everybody has a stake in the game and they have to be related in order to identify effective outcomes, then measure those key results. Don't over-collect. Choose the 5 to 7 that matter, and I'll tell you what, I will even say cut it down to 3 to 5. Don't over-collect, stay focused. Transparently communicate data on a regular basis. It's okay if something is not working, if you can kill it early and move on to something that does. Use metrics to inform, not punish. This is directly related to the previous recommendation. You need to use it to plan and deliver, not to have a stick over your team. And then focus on the product team level. Look for a gestalt to emerge. You're focusing on a team, the team works together, they're measured together. It builds trust. It builds a desire to deliver greater value. So I know we want time for questions, so I'm going to wrap it up with some recommendations. Pick the right catalyst for transformation. Moving from project to product is somewhat akin to turning a ship. So you need to pick your path and stay focused on it. Pick for value that's going to get you some wins, that will get you trust, that will win you trust and buy you support for a longer term change. Value organizations, individuals within those teams and interactions over process fidelity. Empower your team to find what works for them. And finally, celebrate wins and learn from losses. Use information to inform, use that to grow, and use that to build greater value for your company. So thanks, I'm going to turn it back over and we'll open it up for some questions.
Sounds good. Thank you, Margo. I appreciate that. While we're getting some questions in here, I just want to take a quick introduction to Keyed In. For anyone that isn't familiar with Keyed In or doesn't know what we do, we are a software provider for solutions for project management offices and product teams looking to improve their value contribution and become more agile through better project and resource management practices. Margo, if you want to just flick to the next slide, we can keep this.
Sure.
Questions are coming in. Thanks, appreciate that. Yeah, so like I said, Keaton helps provide visibility into some of the projects and resources, help you make better decisions, and also help by allowing easy resource reassignments for some of these pivots and turns that you need to make in your Agile organization. Some of our value propositions are up here. So again, some of the things we help our customers do, help you reinvest some of your portfolio value, become more agile at that portfolio level, and improve speed of reporting, some of those things that help you become more agile. One of the biggest differences with Keaton is our approach to customer success and our commitment to customer satisfaction. I will say our team prides itself on their experiences helping customers achieve some of these benefits that Margo spoke about, and really to become more agile in their portfolio management practices. So with that, I actually invite everybody, if you are interested, we have an upcoming webinar kind of building on what Margo has talked about and some of these foundational principles. On the next slide here, Margo, we have what we have next for everybody. If you wanted to register for the upcoming one, I'll go ahead and drop a link into the chat box here. If you'd like to register for our next webinar, it is going to be making the case for Agile. So again, if you are looking to make some of these transformations and you're trying to get some buy-in from your organization or looking for what to do next, you're convinced it's the right thing to do. Margo provided a lot of data points here that are compelling. And so we'll kind of help walk you through some of that and what you can do to become more agile at the portfolio level within your organization, helping you place the right bets, as Margo talked about, making sure that you're investing in the right projects and products that matter for the organization, focus on that customer or stakeholder satisfaction, turn quickly when needed, and provide continuous improvement, and ultimately just deliver faster on your promises to those stakeholders. So if you are interested, you can go ahead and register for that one. It will be presented by Sean Dickerson, our head of marketing here at Keaton, so you can hear more about how that works in real life and how Keaton can help you do some of that stuff. So I encourage you to register for that. With that, we will open it up for questions. Go ahead and plop them into the chat box if you'd like. We did get asked along the way about PDU credits, so I just wanted to provide that to everybody. Keaton is not a registered education provider with PMI. Vendors typically aren't. So if you would like to claim this as credit, you might have seen it on PMI, and it likely does qualify for credit. You just have to submit it under the self-directed learning, and PMI will review the content. And due to the nature of the content, a lot of our webinars do qualify for credit. I would imagine this one would, especially considering the presenter here. So go ahead and do that if you'd like to see it. We also got asked about the slides and recording. Again, the slides and recording will be shared with everybody that registered within a day, likely later today, but if you haven't seen it by the end of the day, you should see it by tomorrow early. The slides and recording will show up in your inbox. Whatever email you use to register for the event and join the event is the one that I will go to. If you don't see it, check your junk or spam folder. Sometimes they land in there. But you will get the slides and recording after the event. So don't worry about that. And then we do have a question here. From Amy, do you suggest program management work alongside product management to deliver value and continuous improvement? Or do you suggest that product management is the ultimate person responsible for programs to deliver continuous improvement? How do you see those two roles working together? That one's for you, Margo.
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question. They are meant to work together because there are going to be, consider if you're bringing a new product to market, if you are a financial services company or a retail company, and you're bringing a new digital product to market. Think about how that product, especially if you're going into a new market, might require a significant operational expansion in your organization. It might be a new set of capabilities that you're introducing. Think about in the banking world, if they're going to be going into digital mortgage processing, that you can apply for a mortgage on your phone. That may then require a set of capability changes operationally for the company that would require a program. So we see the two working together we see working together as a requirement, because it's very often in early stages of digital transformation, we saw companies create digital product organizations, sort of slapping it on to the traditional operations area of the project, of the organization or company as an add-on. And then when it came time to integrate that digital product with back-end transactional systems, they weren't well aligned. So by having a product and a program, or a market program and product management structures together, you can really create that cohesive work stream management you need to make sure that you're connecting all customer facing and operationally facing capabilities together.
Excellent, thank you for that. That is a great question. There was another one that came in. What are some of the metrics that indicate momentum? I think you talked about some of the measurements that you spoke of, and how important it is to keep those measurements aligned. So the question is, what are some of those specific metrics?
Sure. What momentum metrics are going to be a combination of effectiveness and efficiency. And a great way to think about what is the right combination of effectiveness and efficiency is that by using a computerized medical case system, you might enable a doctor to see more patients. But if the quality of patient care isn't going up along with that, just because he or she is being more efficient in the number of patients they're seeing, if the quality doesn't go up, that implementation is a failure. So when you're thinking about momentum from a digital products perspective, you're meeting your commitments and delivering high value features to the field, to your customer base, and those features are being adopted and used, and you're seeing the business value being returned back to the organization. So think about the mortgages as an example. We create a mortgage, we may create a mortgage application capability on our digital app, and now we're starting to see that as those features are being released to customers, are we seeing the number of mortgage applications go up? Are we then seeing perhaps on the back end the time for processing those mortgage applications to go down? That's a good indication of momentum. We've met the commitment, we're delivering the value, we're seeing the results.
Perfect. I don't see any more questions coming in. There are some people still on the line. If you do have questions, feel free to drop them into the chat or Q&A box. And while we're waiting for that, we actually have a question for you guys. We'll pull up a poll real fast. If you are interested in learning more about Keaton in particular, I know we didn't cover too much about Keaton and the software. If you are interested in learning more, this wasn't really the forum for it, but we are happy to take that offline and follow up with you guys. So just go ahead and answer the poll really quickly, and we will get back to you if you want to hear more. If there are any other questions, go ahead and drop them in. We'll just leave this up for another minute here and see if anybody has any other questions. I think your content was pretty comprehensive, Margo. I don't see any other questions coming in.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you everyone for having me, and have a great day.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you being here and walking through some of this with us. Really important topics and things we get asked a lot. So great to hear from you and have you on today. Thank you everybody for joining, taking some time out of your day. And we wish you luck in your Agile transformation. And again, if you are interested in the next webinar, we do have more on this topic for you. So feel free to tune in again.